D.C. one step closer to electing a socialist mayor as Kenyon McDuffie concedes to Democrat socialist Janice Lewis-George in their Democratic primary. Her win reflecting the rise of far-left ideology in the Democratic Party as the philosophy spreads
far-left ideology
across the country. Yesterday,
all running as Democrats, far left.
Time progressive champion Bernie Sanders and Democratic socialist Zohran Mamdani rallying together in the Big Apple.
So these are all mayors except for Graham Plattner. I think Nithya Raman, the more I read about her, the more I like.
The outcome of these elections will reverberate around our city and around our country, and it will send a very clear message. When we win, we will make it clear that our movement is more powerful than their money.
And there is something else that the American people understand, and that is that the politics and the policies of the Democratic establishment are no longer.
Yeah, not guilty by reason of insanity. Yeah, that same thing. Psych defense, yeah.
Good enough.
Republican strategist and Cornerstone Strategies principal Cassie Smedley joins me now. Cassie, as you heard right there, they are not hiding their intentions anymore. They're not talking about socialism in maybe one city or possibly one state. They're talking about it going national. So how worried should our viewers be that socialism?
Smoking Blondie. You know what's crazy? The Grateful Dead almost disappeared. And people all of a sudden were releasing the bootlegs because their recordings kind of were lacking. It didn't capture the magic of a Grateful Dead concert. And the bootleggers actually, because they had tape, it was at the same time like cassette tapes were coming out, and the bootleggers were recording all these concerts they were going to and distributing them. And then Grateful Dead got bigger because of the bootleg, which I think is such a cool story, that freedom, liberty, the folk tradition made the band. They were going big. Jerry Garcia was about to call it quits because he didn't have any money. They couldn't eat. And all of a sudden, all these people they became a movement about the Grateful Dead that continues to this day. Jerry Garcia's dead. He's still making money because of bootleggers.
Trojan horse of the Democratic Party, as I refer.
It's so crazy. People are like, I want my money. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. It's mine. It's mine. I want all the money. And it's like, if the Grateful Dead behaved that way, we would have no Grateful Dead. They would be gone. They'd be forgotten. They would have broken up, and know what people would have been like, man, one time I saw this cool band in San Francisco. That would be the story. I forget their name. They had a cool name though. I can't remember it.
To it now is coming to a city or town or state near them.
Hey, good morning, Todd. So let's be wary, buyer beware, right? But from a political standpoint, there's a couple things happening here. I think broadly, the socialists have handed Republicans a gift in the general elections, and they've handed Democrats a dilemma. Because what's really happening here is,
yeah, there's this awesome podcast about cassette tapes, because I've always been into music and I listen to weird stuff like that sometimes, and they really dove deep into it. But yeah, man, they would not have been around as we know them today, for sure not. I mean, I think they had already released an album, but it didn't do very well. And the Grateful Dead, the bootlegs, and then also the sound guys would be like, hey, plug in, and they have direct to the soundboard, and they would have recordings of the live performances, which is how traditionally musicians actually made their money, by the way. You don't make much on the records. The records, the record company gobbles all that up, and the agents, and everyone gets their piece, but the performance, the musicians make more money, like traditionally. Yeah. He sold ties in the end. Yeah, well, he was a painter too, right? So his paintings were used as tie designs. Yeah, Jerry Garcia ties. Yeah, he was. I don't think he was selling ties, but yeah, his designs were put on ties famously so that people could wear them in their offices and feel cool, feel kind of like they're still hippies, even though they're wearing a tie, which I thought was ironic, but kind of fun too, right? Jerry Garcia had the coolest guitars. He only had 9 fingers too, man. 9 fingers. He was a great guitar player. I think Navia was the one who suggested I learn Scarlet Begonias, and I was listening to that song over and over again because there's some weird things to it, and I was trying to learn the song for her, and I was actually every time I listen to Jerry Garcia records, I'm always shocked that he's playing that with 9 fingers, man. And he's 9 fingers on his fretboard hand. I think it's on this hand. If I lost my fingers on this hand, I could still play guitar, but if I lost my fingers on this hand, I couldn't play. because I probably could learn, but like I couldn't immediately play guitar left-handed for sure.
This is a civil war in the Democrat Party, that they keep putting up these socialist candidates. The Democrat Socialists of America are very organized and energized, and they're winning these primaries. And they can win them in a deep blue city like New York or Washington, D.C., or even Chicago. But what happens if they win them in my home state of Missouri? Are they able to compete in the general elections? Or even more broadly in 2028, what happens nationally?
Why did the Nazis hate social democrats?
If they can, that's very scary for those of us like you, me, and the viewers. But I don't think so, because I think the country more broadly is saying that might work in your deep navy blue city, but don't come messing with us. So that's what we're really looking at.
Well, we're going to get an answer in a few months because November is right around the corner. And I think that's going to be the first real test of Democrat socialism staying power beyond maybe just a few cities and this place in time. But I think there's a larger question that we don't talk about enough. And it's this. None of this is organic. All of it is highly orchestrated. The Washington...
What? None of it's organic? Now you want organic. I thought you wanted billionaires in crypto. What are you talking about?
Actually broaching the subject, quote, the Democratic Socialists of America won't be pacified. But then they get into this. For more than a decade, this movement has quietly built a political ecosystem that operates independently from the traditional party. Organizations such as the DSA,
that sounds organic to me,
and the Working Families Party have spent years recruiting candidates, training activists, and building donor networks. So that,
yeah. So this is, if you will, give me a moment. Lenin said that if you want to be successful, you have to participate with bourgeois parliament, right? You have to sit and deliberate with bourgeois parliament, because even though we all know that parliamentary government and what we call a constitutional republic, what we have here, parliamentary government is unethical and doesn't work, even though we know that the people don't, and we have to go to where the people are in order to get a real movement going, in order to create a real movement. And so, like what he just said, like the Justice for American Families or something, like these other smaller Marxist groups, they get together and they form coalitions and they create solidarity and they start working within the Democratic Party because it's the most popular part. Well, it was the most popular. Now it's like, it's playing second fiddle right now. But I think the Democrats are still pretty popular in America. I think most people would agree. And if you could exist within them, you could start building a groundswell. The fascists are doing the same thing on the other side, right? The fascists are always part of the Republican Party. They're always building a groundswell over there. And that's what MAGA is. MAGA is a fascist groundswell of ultra right-wing Nazism. Now, why do they hate social democrats so much? Nazis hated social democrats because they were the primary defenders of the Democratic Republic of Weimar, the Weimar Republic, and staunch advocates for internationalism. To the Nazis, social democrats represented everything they wanted to destroy: political pluralism, workers' rights, labor unions, and a peaceful, non-radical path to societal reform. Now, when you think about why the Nazis hated the social democrats, and so they still have social democrats in Germany. They're called the SPD. That was Merkel's party. They're not really social democrats these days. Now they're just Democrats, really. They're kind of like our Democrats, a bunch of do-nothing, limp-wristed bastards. But now they still exist. They were scapegoated in World War II, in the Hitler's Germany, because SPD was in power because they supported international cooperation, and they don't like that shit. They said that the democratic system was used as a scapegoat for Germany's economic ruin and the shame of the Treaty of Versailles after World War I. So tons of reasons to hate social democrats for the Nazis, and tons of reason for our Nazis, our current day Nazis, to hate social democrats. So organizations like the DSA, Justice Democrats, and Working Families Party, like these are probably more Marxist leaning, populist, pluralist organizations. I've only ever heard of the Working Families Party. I don't know what DSA is or Justice Democrats, but they form coalitions and they caucus with the Democrats because they have to. It's called realpolitik.
That begs the question, who's pushing this? Who's funding this? Educate us, Cassie.
Well, in many ways, we don't know. It's a lot of dark money that's pushing behind this. So that's something to be mindful of. But I will say, Todd, I worked on Capitol Hill for 10 years. And in my time, back in my day, when Bernie Sanders introduced a bill, he sat in the corner and it was his bill all on his own. And Democrats said, oh, that.
I want to say thank you to, I don't thank the moderators enough. Thank you, moderators.
Just Bernie. And then came along the Bernie pressure. And now it's like a litmus test for Democrats that you need to co-sign his bills. Kamala Harris, she was all too happy to be right there next to Bernie, working with him in the Senate. So there is a change. They understand that this is a group that they need to be aware of, because this group, as you mentioned, for so long wasn't getting anywhere in the Democrat Party. I mean, the DNC purposely rigged the elections to keep Bernie Sanders out of it and make Hillary Clinton their nominee.
That's because he's not a Democrat. The DNC is not, the DNC will fight this. What you're seeing is a groundswell of further left, more pluralist, more idealist, more socialist ideas. Yeah, absolutely. But why is that a problem is the question we should ask. Why do you have a problem with these socialists, with people who are social democrats? Why do you hate them so much? Or democratic socialists, they like to call themselves now, so that Nazis don't kill them on sight. Now they call themselves democratic socialists, but they're just social democrats.
So they said, you know what, forget you. We're going to do it ourselves. And to underestimate how organized they are is at the Democrats' own peril. So while I do think that this is more of a dilemma with the Democrat Party, and I do think that it's disenfranchising more of center-left Democrats, the traditional Democrat voter, of which I think the majority of Democrat voters still are, they are not to be underestimated, because they've got a very loud, well-funded coalition here that they're building, and Bernie Sanders is out on the campaign trail happily with all of them.